Hey, good to see you all. I'm sorry about the pushback. We've had some delays tonight. I'm not sure 100% what's going on. But we've had some just delays that we don't normally have. I can't really tell you what they are, but just delays. I'm not really sure what's going on. Uh yeah. Anyway, it means that I can bring you some of the things today, but some of them it'll have to wait. It'll have to wait for a little bit. So I'm not sure, and you don't really want to screw around with the Supreme Court. So I don't really want to, you know, say things I'm not supposed to be saying or something. So I will run you through some of this other stuff. So last night we did a little bit on the evidence from the professor who works in mobile phone, cellular technology, and he does sort of evidence for a lot of the prosecution, but he says he does work for the defense if they ask. So I wanted to show you just a little bit more about that because I had a lot of emails, people asking, "Can you explain this a little bit more?" So I will. Here, let me set this up. Here. All right. No, the cats are okay. We we fed them before we started the live show today, so that they wouldn't be naughty cats. We're like, no, you have to be good cats tonight. So they're being fed. They're gone to sleep. All right. So I can't show you any of the physical evidence from the trial because we don't have it. We don't have any of the exhibits from the trial. We're not allowed to have them at the moment. But what I can show you is the Scientific Working Group on Digital Evidence. And this sort of it tells you sort of the things that they look for, the way it sort of works, and it'll give you a bit more of a better understanding of this cell phone data. Let's just go down here. So we spoke about actually yesterday. We spoke about something similar to a CDR. So they call it a CDR in a lot of other places around the world, but here we call it a CCR, which is a customer call record. But it's they're similar. They're not quite the same, but they do very similar things. But here, let me go down here. This is just words and words. We don't really want that. Yeah, let's go all the way down here. All right. So one of the emails I got was about the antennas and omnidirectional and sectors. Well, like, what was the difference? Well, this sort of tells you what the difference is. The omnidirectional, again, omni, means like, in tech it means multiple, or in all directions. So you can see here that this antenna is broadcasting in all directions, but with the cell site that you use with sectors, you have these antennas set up in an array, and they're set up in this sort of setup here. So you have these different sectors that you see. So they look like this, slices of a pie or a pizza, if you're having a very large piece of pizza, is the way I would describe it for people. And each one of these is one of your sectors. Okay. So normally it's like alpha, beta, gamma. And so it's A, B, G. Why they use G, I got no idea. Don't ask Ping. But this is like some of the evidence you might see sometimes. And what you'll get on the map is just the sector with the azimuth here. So you'll have the sort of triangle, or whatever shape you want to call this, but yeah, sort of like a triangle or something like that. But you often will see this. You often don't get the tower. It'll just look like that. You'll get that shape with the middle bit here, and this shows you sort of like the coverage. And then you'll sometimes pick up little other targets, and I'll show you a better example of this. So there's the azimuth and the 90 degrees, and it shows you that this beam width of this particular sector is 120 degrees. So when we were talking last night about the evidence where they were talking about 300 degrees, 90 degrees, 150 degrees, they're talking about the position that this sector's at. So I will show you a different layout, which will give you a better idea. And it's not perfect. Sometimes they move. Sometimes they're sort of moved in different directions depending on what they're trying to target. But the very stock standard one will look like this. Where is it? Yeah, that's not the one I want. Yeah, guys. I think we have to go further up this document. Yes, we do. All right. We've gone too far. Hold on, guys. I'll pull it up. Yes, yeah. So the center point here would be a overlooking view of your cell phone tower. And if you think about it like a clock, that's what I was trying to explain to you last night, like a clock, right? So it's like, 12, 3, 6, 9, and then you have your ones in between, like on a normal clock. And 12 is 360 to the slight left, and then to the slight right, it's 0 as well. And then it says your azimuth is 240 degrees. So it's pointing in this direction through the 240, which is roughly 8 o'clock on the clock. So when they're talking about these directions last night, where they're like, this tower, at 150 was picking up the handset. Well, they're talking about here. So 150 would be pointed in this direction where the 5 is, 5 o'clock on the clock, and then 150. So depending on the width of it, um, I think they said last night they were all 90s. So 90s or 120s. I have to check, but that's the width of it. And then this is your direction. So 150 degrees is where that where the signal is connecting from, which direction is it coming from. So I hope that is giving you a clearer idea. I know it's a little annoying. Here's another version of it. So it shows you that clock, and then 0, 30, 60, 90, 120, 150, 180, 210, 240, 270, 300, 360, and then back to 0. So this is not perfect. Sometimes they're set up in various ways where they shift it. You just got to find out like what orientation it's in. But just for most of them, this will work. At least it will give you your bearings of what you're looking for. So when we were talking about all those different degrees last night, like 90, 150, this is what they're talking about. So like, again, this is an overview as if you're looking down on the tower, like from like a Google map. So that is what they're talking about when they're talking about these cell phone tracking. Here's another bit here. So there's a 120 degree width. So this is 120, 120, 120. And if you times 120 by 3, you end up with 360, which is 360 degrees, right? It's a full circle. And there's your sectors. So it depends what they call them. I've seen them called various things. On this particular document, it's called Sector 1, alpha, beta, gamma. There's some other ones that sort of do it differently. In America, there's some that actually don't have a number 1. They start at Sector 2, and it goes 2, 3, 4. Alpha, beta, gamma as well, but it's 2, 3, 4, not 1, 2, 3. Why they do that, I have no idea. But there you go. So this is a document I like to show people when we're talking about cell phone tracking. It's a little bit different in Australia. The technology and the way things are done, especially through Telstra, which is our local big telecom company, it's slightly different. There's slightly different protocols. There's different ways they do things. The actual technology is very similar, and the way things are done technology-wise are very similar, but some of the protocols and the way they run things, software, stuff like that, is just a little bit different compared to, say, the USA. So, yeah, so this is, you can apply this to the same thing, and some of the information here overlaps. So this is one here. This is what they were sort of talking about last night, where some of the information that you get when you get given information to track cell phones, it gives you all these type of like data. So this tells you what sector, so sector 1, 2, and 3. These are the different the azimuths for it. And then here it says cell, so it says whatever that 611, and then these are NEIDs. And I'll show you why that's interesting here. Let's go up here. Let's go this one. No. This might be a good one for people to have a look at too. They're saying, well, this is what they were trying to explain yesterday. So yesterday he mentioned in a lot of his evidence about radio frequency, and a lot of people like radio frequency. It's a mobile phone. Isn't that something different? Well, not really. That's how your phones connect to things. And so this is just a diagram. So this is a tower, and RX means receive, and TX means transmission. So the tower is transmitting, and the phone is receiving, and then the phone is transmitting, and the tower is receiving. That's what TX RX means. And yeah, so it says when a cell phone connects to a tower to conduct an outgoing call or receive an incoming call, the phone company or provider maintains a record of that event. So we were talking about event records yesterday. And the difference between something like a CCR, so CCR is customer call records. Customer call records will tell you things like who you called. Maybe it'll tell you if you SMS someone or you sent a MMS to someone, like a photo message, things like that, possibly even data, like it'll say if you opened up a data connection. Event records tend to be slightly different. They're based on things that your phone does, and it could be several things. It could be things like your phone in the background is checking your email. That can be classed as something like an event where your phone is connecting to the tower to get data, or some sort of connection to the thing, and that's an event because your phone is sending that out and trying to connect to a tower to get that information. So that can be for email, social media, Twitter or something, Facebook updates, or even if you do something, so you want to check your banking, things like that. Those are what we would more consider events. And then a CCR record is more things like very basic information about, like, if you called someone, what their number is, what your number is, how long that connection might have been, like what we call call duration. So they're the sort of two different types of data sets that you can get. It's a slightly different from what you call like a tower dump. A tower dump is something completely different, and when we're not even dealing with that, at least as far as I know, listening to the evidence, we're not really dealing with that. We're sort of dealing with cell phone records and records from the telecommunications company, which is Telstra in this particular case. This is something I found on this particular presentation that I thought would be interesting. So it says here, a cellular phone or a mobile phone in Australia is regularly surveying the RF radio frequency environment of the cellular provider to identify the cell tower and sector with the best RF signal. This relates to what they were talking about last night. He gave some evidence about the differences between phones from back in the day. So back in the day, a mobile phone would find a connection and hold on to that connection until it became degraded and unusable. And then it was like, oh, maybe we need to find a new connection, and the phone would find something better. But these days, it does this. These phones are always constantly searching for a better connection or the best connection. It's sort of like best first, and that's how they work now. It's always so you could connect to one tower, and if you move a few steps or a street to the right, it'll then rescan the area and say, "Hey, there's one right here that's way better. It's got 5G or whatever, and it's way faster, and it's got less latency." And your phone will automatically switch to the better tower. So this is what they mean by he was speaking last night about greedy connections, or sort of that type of thing. That's what this is. It's showing you that these phones will constantly look for other connections now. So they're a lot more active than they used to be, which is probably good if you're trying to track them, because it means you're going to get more data. All right. So this is US cellular. Not everything we can use on this, because it's some of it's different, but yeah. I wanted to show you the bit about what you can get. Oh, yes. So this is like data record of particular mobile device activity over time. This is very similar, not quite the same, but to a piece of evidence that we were shown and the jury was shown, and they were showing records very not quite the same as this, but very similar. And this is where they were looking for the target's phone. So this is Erin Patterson's phone. They were looking for if she had uh, gone to an area, or had she driven by it. Basically, was she visiting, or was she stopping at the area? And we talked about that last night. And one of the bits that they showed us was how she had gone from Leongatha down into the town, another town, and the results here kept, repeating in that same area, and they were asking him, what does that mean? Does that mean she was there? Or and he was saying that when you see these type of results where you get sort of like a round trip, it starts at Leongatha and then headed into this particular town and came back. They were saying that, especially with the sort of like stalling, and you get the same connections over and over, this would indicate someone being in, possibly in the same area, that the target area that they're looking for. Wouldn't be just driving by. It would be what they classed as a visit. So they were talking about this. What they were trying to nail it down to was this oval, or sporting oval, that we talked about last night, and then that connected back to the evidence that Christine McKenzie gave yesterday about her being at the oval and picking uh, death cap mushrooms at the oval, and she put up a report on iNaturalist, and then we went into the cell phone data later in the afternoon, and the cell phone data was trying to demonstrate to everyone the two types of like tracking that you can do with it, and what they were looking for as their target. And their target was to look for the target's phone heading to this particular area and staying there for a period of time. Now, under cross examination today, he was asked whether they could actually pinpoint if this phone was in the town. Could they say that it was actually right there at the oval? And he had to say under cross exam that, well, no, they said that they're, confident it was in the area, but that they couldn't say 100% like it was at this particular location. They just said that based on the evidence that they had, based on the analysis that he had done, that he was confident that it had gone to this particular area, but he couldn't exactly say where it went, or if it was actually at this particular sporting oval that they were talking about. So, actually, give me a sec. Let me bring up the notes from yesterday so I can get the actual town names and that. Hold on. Okay. So I pulled that up from yesterday. So it's Dr. Sorrell. That's who we were talking about. And the area that they were talking about is a place called Nielsen Street, and that's the same place as the Oval. I'm just trying to scroll down here so I can get into my notes and tell you more about it. Yeah, if we go right to the end here. So right at the end of yesterday's, after I told you all that data that we spoke about yesterday. All right. So they asked him, Dr. Sorrell, they said, the data you analyzed for the 22nd of May 2023, is that consistent or inconsistent with a visit or possible visit to the location? And he says, on May 22nd, there are consistent visits to this sector. And he says it is consistent with connections to the 330-degree sector. And he says it's persistently between whatever the time was. And he said it was in that area for about a 35-minute period. He says it's more consistent with being in the Lock Township and the reserve. Sorry, it wasn't Outram, it was Lock. So they were wondering about this Lock Reserve, sporting reserve. Let me see if I can pull that up for you. And he says here, so this is in the first instance indicates a possible visit because it's movement from Leongatha towards Lock and then back again. And he says, when I now look at the EBM records, which is event-based records below, he says the event records indicate that the phone connects persistently via Lock South at 330 degrees, like on the clock. And he says that's he was saying just here to here. He was giving a demonstration with his on the map, and he says it was connecting about every 5 minutes via Lock South at the 330 degree on the sector. He says this particular antenna, which is what's inside of on the tower. He says this antenna points straight into Lock Township, and he says the connection is persistent between 9:24 to 10:01, and he says it aligns with the proposition that the phone is in or around Lock Township itself. And he says while it could be moving in and around that area, it can't be moving very far. If it were moving, then we would see a spattering of connections again. So they were trying to see whether they could see the accused phone in that area. So I hope that gives you a little bit more of a clearer idea. I didn't want to get too deep into it, but this is sort of what you would see on a lot of these maps, right? So like I was telling you, you just sort of get the sector and then the sort of what the azimuth here, and you get the, I can't remember what they call this now, but there's a name for it where uh, they connect it from either side. Sorry, ping's tired. But this is what you see normally on the map. So you don't get anything else. You don't get the tower. You don't get the other sectors. You just get the one of interest that was like either connecting or picking up whatever it is that they're looking for, right? Now, I haven't seen it done in this particular case, but what happens when you have more than one tower in the same area that may be covering the target cell phone, tablet, vehicle, whatever it is that has a connection to the cell tower. This one's just a example of this cell tower is obviously covering this area over here, and this one is probably covering this area. And they're saying there's a homicide scene over here, and there's an alibi over here. So it's just an example of what they might look for. So they're looking for one that points up into this area, and then one that probably overlaps a little bit because this one goes north and this one goes sort of southeast. They would probably overlap slightly with the way they propagate outwards. So it's probably a good example of the meeting in the middle. But what happens when they do that? Well, you get more data and you get a better when you can see it on both and not one, you get more clarification as whether your results are correct or not. Hold on, I'll show you if we go down here. Sorry, I don't want to give anyone motion sickness. Where is it? No, we don't want to talk to exigent requests. We can do that another time. No, not AT&T. Maybe it's up here. Sorry, guys. I want to find this one example. Now, like I said, I haven't seen it done in this particular case. Okay, so don't be like Ping told us they're doing this in this in this Erin Patterson trial. Okay, I didn't say that. I said it's an example of what you could do, not something that is happening. Uh, let's see. Oh, they don't have it on this one. Okay, maybe it's on the other one. So I wanted to show you an example of triangulation, but I don't know if they have one. I don't know if I have one. But basically, when you have these overlapping towers and then you have a target device within them, it allows you to triangulate between it. So you can do it with two towers, even though a triangle is three, but you can do it with two where they overlap, and then you have a target device in the middle. You can work out some information from that too. Sometimes distance, where things are located. With three, it's even better because you have triangulation. It's you have three in a triangle, so you can use your mathematics and work things out. And get again location, maybe distance, um, possibly elevation, depending on certain things. But yeah, really wanted to show you an example of it though. I thought there was one in here. Hold on, guys. It might be in the other one, the forensic data one. Is that one there? This is a geolocate. I don't know if this is the same what they're talking about. Data session. Yeah, I don't think this is exactly what I'm looking for. I thought the cast team one had an example for us. I guess they don't. Okay, it doesn't, unfortunately. But it doesn't really matter because they're not really using that technique in this one. Why? I'm not sure. I haven't heard an explanation. But they're just using these records that we've talked about previously for their data. And I'm not. I can't even begin to speculate because I don't know. Oh, here. Yeah, this is it here. So this is for T-Mobile and AT&T. Not quite the same as Australia. Don't try and do a direct comparison because it's not. But this sort of shows you how it works, right? So you have one tower to the north here, and you have two to the south of the device. Each one either maybe connected or they're able to, um, see the device or find records for it, and they're able to work out based on certain things. So there is one called like what they call like round trip, and this is where you send a packet or a packet was sent to the device, and based on time, how long it took to get back, based on some sample that they have of X amount of meters, you can work out things like distance, location, if you don't have things like GPS or Google services. So it is another way of doing it. That's just an example there. So if you have three towers, I don't know how they do it for this one. So this one, Okay. This one is the network's ability to utilize timing advance or time of arrival positioning mechanism. TOA positioning method is based on measuring the time of arrival or timing advance of a known signal sent from the cell phone and received at three or more measurement unit towers. So that's what I was explaining to you. They can use data and packets as a way of measuring based on how long it takes, what responses they get, that type of thing. So it probably doesn't work very well if you're in a country area. So if you're in a country area, which is what the Erin Patterson case is based on, it's out. Well, I took you out there. You guys saw the drive out there. It's a more rural area. They don't have the kind of flooded coverage that you get in the city or something like this. Finding 3 towers that are in the right positions to do this type of thing is probably is 1 in a million. They probably just don't have the type of towers so close together to be able to do this type of stuff. Yeah, because you could be talking about like one that's like really close to a town. You got another one that maybe just outside of the town, and then the next one maybe 100 like or 50 k's down the highway. So it wouldn't work for what this is trying to accomplish. All right, so I hope that I know it's still. I tried to explain it better than I did last time. I hope that gives you a better understanding of how these cell towers work and what they're talking about when we talk about um, these cell towers and the degrees and what kind of technology is used within it. It goes much deeper than this. There's more networking and IP addresses and metadata and ping, things like that. So if if you're new here and you don't know why my name is Ping, it's because my original name was Ping the router, and it's because I worked in networking and IT. So I worked in Cisco networking, cybersecurity analyst, forensic data recovery, that type of thing. Before I did true crime, that's what I did. So this kind of stuff. I've been out of the game a little while, but I still keep somewhat educated on different topics as we work through it in true crime. So, hey, I'm not saying that everything I say is perfect, but I have some understanding of it, even if it's like I'll say it's 1%. It's probably more than that, but I don't want to say that you should believe everything I say. Specialized historical location data functions. Yeah, so what they call geolocates, that's the other one I wanted to talk to you. They say geolocates are real-time precision location requests from cellular networks to the device, requesting the device's location. Geolocates are referred to as pings and will normally report a longitude and latitude along with a certainty factor or margin of area from that point. And they said it's extremely important to map the certainty factor or radius that is reflected in the geolocate data. They said, yeah, so these are geolocates. They don't, I don't know if this would work in this particular case because it's a real time uh, thing. So there's an example of one there. I'm just checking the chat. Hey, good to see you. Or hey, Heather, Laura T, Sean, Julie. Hey, Julie, how are you? Hey, Robbie, how are you, my friend? I hope Japan was fun. Hey, Sean, good to see you. Marjorie's here. Wendy R. Okay. All right. So, some of the things I can talk to you about from today, okay? One of the things we were showing this afternoon, and unfortunately, we didn't get too much more after this, so maybe we'll learn more about it tomorrow. But the jury was shown a CCTV of Erin Patterson at a BP, what Americans would call a gas station, what we would call a service station. And the video showed Erin in that red four-wheel drive that you may have seen photos of before. It pulls up to the front of the service station. She hops out. She walks into the BP. She sort of mills about for a couple of seconds and then heads back to the bathroom area. She sort of is there and in the bathroom for only about 9 seconds. And then she comes back out, checks out some of the merchandise, and then leaves. It's what relation this has to anything so far, I'm not 100% sure, but hopefully we'll find out tomorrow. But yeah, that's what we were shown. We were shown this thing, and what I wrote about it this afternoon says CCTV shows Erin Patterson arriving at the BP. She approaches the toilet area but leaves seconds later. I believe that's actually about 9 seconds based on the timestamps that we were given today. And it says she proceeds to browse items for sale within the gas station and then leaves. So yeah, she just left. What was she doing there? I don't know. We'll find out. Maybe we'll find out tomorrow in the evidence tomorrow. And then what else did we do today? Let me check up here. Yeah, so when we were showing the BP stuff, we were hearing from a senior constable. I hope I get his name right. Kuang Tran, and he is attached to the homicide squad, and he was one of the people that helped investigate the murders, or the alleged murders. Uh, well, the deaths of Gail, Ian, and Heather. And one of his jobs was to go around and get this CCTV footage, and he got this CCTV footage of the BP. That's why we were shown it. So we got to hear from him very briefly this afternoon, and yeah, CDR, and the rest of today was Professor Matthew Sorrell. He was being cross-examined for about a majority of the day today. I just am waiting on some more information about that so I can tell you a bit more about it. Yeah, let's go up here. So I wrote something on Twitter this afternoon, and people were wondering what I was talking about. I said gardens and garden hoses have been a hot analogy over the past 2 days of witness evidence, questions both by the prosecution and the defense. What I was talking about there is Professor Sorrell was using garden hoses and gardens as an analogy for networking. And what he was trying to explain is that on the Telstra network, when you open a data connection, it can run for a very long period of time. And sort of I think the way he explained it was this: you can like water your garden, and then you can sort of go to different areas in your garden, water something, then forget about it, and then you go inside, and then you go a few hours later, you go, "Oh my god, I left the hose on," and then you go back outside and turn the hose off. And that's sort of the way he was explaining this data connection with Telstra. But the way I would explain it is this: is that it doesn't seem to be instantaneous. So when you have this connection and it opens these data connections, it's not instantaneous that it like drops off and then you get like a very exact period of time. And I think that's what he was trying to demonstrate, is that it's not a perfect measurement of anything. And that's what he was trying to explain. Um, what else did he explain about the data connections? Yes, so that's what the hose thing was, and they talked about it a couple of times, and they went into it a little further. And he's like, they were trying to say, "Wow, you must have a very big backyard." It was a weird analogy. When I can get the quote for you and verify it, I'll tell it to you. But I don't have it right now because we've got a bit of a delay on something. Uh, yeah. So hoses and gardens were big things today in court. Let me see what else I've got. We did the BP. We did that. There's that. Sorrel, Colin Mandy. Yeah. I don't have too much more than that. I may have to do a follow-up show with you guys tomorrow and sort of give you the rest of today. Now, today was not when you have a lot of cross-examination in a day, a lot of the cross-examination can be sort of rehashing things that have already been said. So a lot of the questions that maybe Colin Mandy asked today were just either verifying things that was said the day before or asking for a better explanation or asking if he really meant it like that. So a lot of today was Colin Mandy doing his job and cross-examining the professor. Hey Heather, how are you, my friend? Robbie says Japan was amazing. Send me some photos, Robbie. Send me some photos. Julie says lovely First Nations painting. I don't I don't think I have any First Nations paintings. Is this a First Nation painting? I think this is a I think this is a painting by Rebe. I don't think she's First Nation. She might be like First Rebe, but I don't think she's First Nation. Yeah, let me see. Let me just double check my notes. I just got to be cautious when we can't do our verifications of stuff. It gets very, very legally tricky. Gets a little funny. Hold on. If I can find another bit of something I want to talk about, then I'll do it. Hold on. Just trying to see if I. Oh yeah. So when Erin went to that BP, um, and that is from Cal Mead. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. It's July 30, 2023. So it was the day after the lunch, and that's the CCTV that we saw. And she entered the toilet inside the gas station or service station in Australia, and but only for about 9 seconds. Then she went back to browsing the store, and it says here she purchased candy, a ham, cheese, and tomato sandwich, and a sweet chili chicken wrap, according to the evidence given to the court. The CCTV that we saw was only about a couple of minutes long, 2 minutes and 34 seconds. And they're saying, yeah, so Dr. Sorrell describes it like this. He says, a person's phone may initiate data sessions without their knowledge. And he says, there's many reasons why someone would change a yeah, sorry. Let me jump down here. He says about this data sessions occurring without people's knowledge. He says it often occurs without people's knowledge or phone users' knowledge. And he says data sessions may end when the phone is switched off or put into flight mode because that's like a hard cut. When you power off your phone or put it into flight mode, it's sort of like a hard wall, and that kind of cuts out your data. Uh, Let me see. Yeah, so as I talked to you before, CCRs, so call charge records, they contain the information that I told you before: data, SMS, call, and MMS. The other one, the event-based one, is things like your phone does in the background, or you do, like if you checked your banking or an updated email, that type of thing. So we went over a little bit more about that today. Um, that was sort of like the gist of it. Uh, so under cross examination from Colin Mandy, they were talking about they're talking about these routes that we were talking about yesterday. So the maps to Outram and then we talked about the other one that went to the Oval, right, Nielsen Street. And Colin Mandy was putting forward a proposition about Patterson's phone that it may have been heading to Inverloch, and they said, you know, he says, I want to suggest this to you that those records that we've just had a look at, the connections on May 22nd, 2023, the handset moves from Leongatha down the Bass Highway heading to Inverloch. And Sorrell was asking, well, is that your proposed idea or is that your proposed route? And Mandy says, yep. And they said at some point towards the middle of that line that you have drawn, remain stationary for some period of time. And he asks again, is that your what? They're asking, is that your theory? But the way they say it is that your proposition? That's from Dr. Sorrell. And Colin Mandy says, that is my proposition. And his reply to this was, so they were basically saying that the car was moving to a different place, heading to a different location, and not heading where where the prosecution was saying it was going to go. And they came up with an alternate way that this was going to go. And their suggestion, or Colin Mandy's suggestion, was it was moving from Leongatha down the Bass Highway heading to Inverloch. So a completely different route and destination. And Professor Sorrell says at some point towards the middle of that line, so he drew a line on the map. He says it remains stationary for a period of time. Sorry, that's Colin Mandy. And then he goes on to say, in reply, Dr. Sorrell says, in terms of the connection to Outram, I would agree. In terms of the neighboring base stations, I would agree. But for Comwhack base station, which doesn't connect during these records, that base station has an antenna directly approximately. He was pointing to an area of the map, and he says that is an anomaly that wouldn't fit with your proposition, provided that Comwhack is working. Why doesn't it show up in this proposition? So let me explain to you what he's trying to say. Colin Mandy gave an alternate route for the data that we talked about on the 22nd of May yesterday, right? But the professor is saying, well, it's a good theory or a good proposition, but the one thing you haven't accounted for is if it moved along the route that you're talking about, there's another base station off to the right. It was on the right of the map on Kongwak. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. He says this particular tower, if you drove down this route, would probably most likely get picked up. So this handset that they're talking about would get picked up by this other tower over here. And they're saying that for your theory to be true, that would have to be true too. So he's sort of saying like most likely not. How do you pronounce it? Caldermead, is that the other one? Thank you, I appreciate it. If we could record town names, I would do that, but we're not allowed to record anything. And I hear so much data every day. I'm just like, wait, what was that town again? Not that I don't like people in that town. I hope they're having a great day. Congratulations again. What happened? What did we do? I'm so confused. What happened? I don't know what's going on. Caldermead. Okay. All right. Caldermead. Thanks. Yes, that is what they're trying to explain. So they're just basically it's the professor's way of telling Colomandy that he's not accounted for something in his proposition. That yeah, this tower, should that cell phone have moved in that direction, it probably would have got picked up by this other particular mobile tower. All right, let me see. So Colomandi also said after this exchange, he says, "Let me suggest this: uh, that there were multiple locations Erin Patterson's phone could have been on May 22nd," and he says there are a variety of propositions which might account for the connections in an exhibit that we saw called Exhibit 36. And Dr. Sorrell said he agreed. So this is where they were saying that while they try and be as confident as they can in their analysis, if you can't pinpoint something, you know, it makes it hard, doesn't it? All right. I don't want to talk about that. Yeah, so under cross examination by Colin Mandy was questioning Dr. Sorrell, and Dr. Sorrell agreed with Colomandy, and he was suggesting that there is no way to prove a phone is in a particular area without corroborating evidence. And they are saying here that in a country area, so a rural area, phones may not connect with the closest base station, but can connect with the base station which has the best coverage if it was furthest away. So we talked about this last night. We talked about line of sight, so LOS. And line of sight is exactly what it sounds like. It's the line between your phone and the cell phone tower. If there's anything in the way, whether it be I don't know, a giant tree, spaceship, giant UFO, I don't know, mountain, skyscraper, whatever. If that blocks your line of sight between you and the tower, it can either not allow you to connect or degrade your connection. You get a lower a lower amount of bars or something like that. So where you have a better line of sight, of course you're going to get a better connection. So that's what they're talking about there. All right. Yeah, so Dr. Sorrell said that he agreed that topography of an area, including hills, may mean a phone cannot connect to the closest base station, but could connect with an antenna up to 100 kilometers away. I'd be worried that your connection wouldn't be great at 100 kilometers away, but it's probably true. You might get one bar. Um, yeah, I'm gonna. So they're talking about what they're talking about after this was Colin Mandy also asked Professor Sorrell, and they were talking about evidence from yesterday where he said it's easier to exclude a phone from being in a particular area rather than prove a phone was in a particular area. And Colin Mandy had said that he suggested to the professor that one station can dominate the other. And Colomandy said, littered throughout these records are instances of a service moving between two base stations in quick succession. And Dr. Sorrell said, that's right. And Colomandy said, throughout the records in Leongatha, you've seen it appear to be stationary, but then it connects to Outram, is it Mibu, and Mount Eccles. And he said the phone may not be moving very far from Leongatha, but those more distant locations imply some movement. That's what Dr. Sorrell said. So he said it may be just moving around Leongatha and it's connecting to these other places as they move slightly around the area because maybe line of sight, things in the way, uh, could be a variety of things. This is Yeah, so Dr. Sorrell also said He had analyzed data from 3 target base stations for the lock area and had detected 57 events involving Patterson's phone between the dates of March 9, 2022, and then prior to May 2023. So about a year, about a year's time period in 1 year. So 57 events. And he noted these events as possible visits to the area. So that's what we were talking about, this difference between visits and then sort of like driving through or, getting close to the area but continuing to a different location. They were specifically looking for these possible visits to the lock area. So there you go. Kongwak is straightforward. It's just Kongwak. Okay, good. I'm glad I got one right. I'm glad it just one. I get one. Uh Julie Miller says, "Who on earth decided that it was a good name for a place?" I don't know. Probably the British. Probably the British. I don't know if there's a mushroom for you. You have to ask Laura. Laura will tell you. Uh, yeah. Don't save any slices of anything. Hey, Ladybug, how are you? What did you do, my friend? Oh yeah, so she did. I think we went through it before. She bought some candy, um, a sandwich, a ham and cheese toasted sandwich. Hold on, I'll find it for you. Let me go back up here. Let me go all the way back up here. All right. So at the service station, after she visited that bathroom for 9 seconds, she bought some candy, sour confectionery is what they call it, a ham, cheese, and tomato sandwich, and a sweet chili chicken wrap. That's what she bought. What does that mean? I don't know. Hey, Glitter, how are you? Good to see you. Good to see you. All right, let me have a look up here. Yeah. Yeah, we have some pretty weird. I don't think she bought any crisps. No. I don't see, well, in Australia that would be called, we call them chips. So if you bought, if you're in the UK, you call that crisps. In Australia, we call them chips. So Betty C says, don't you feel bad for the poor children? I feel bad for all children. I don't know about this particular case, but I feel bad for all children. Why? I don't know. It's just a thing I feel. Buxton. I don't know. Is that a real town? All right. So I really think until I get the okay to go through any of my other notes, which is freaking annoying, um, that's all I can do tonight. I was even ruling out doing a show at all because I was like, well, I'm not going to be able to tell them a great deal. I'm only going to be able to get through like a few things. But today was sort of a very lot of cross examination today. We really started getting started on these other witnesses very late in the afternoon. I think it was after lunch. It was either after lunch or yeah, must have been when we came back after 2 o'clock. We got started with the. I want to give you his correct name. Hold on. Where's his correct name? Too many names in this trial. Ah, Senior Constable Kuong Tran. And he was attached to the homicide squad and did help investigate the deaths of Heather, Ian, not Ian, Heather, Gail, and Don. So we heard very briefly from him. I think it was only 10 minutes, something like that. And then we watched the CCTV and the day in the afternoon, I can't tell you much more, but we had a lot of interruptions in the afternoon. And then that was it for today. So that was really all we got today was the cross exam for Dr. Sorrell. And then, wait, did we have a third person today? I thought there was just those two. Hold on, let me check my other notes. No, that must have been it. By the way, I just Googled this because I thought you guys might like to see Dr. Sorrell. Here's Dr. Sorrell for you. This is the doctor right here. This is the guy we saw on the in the witness stand giving his evidence. So he was almost the last 24 hours. Quite a detailed, long, uh, one of the longer people in this trial. So there's been a couple. Simon Patterson had quite a long evidence giving. A couple of the doctors had quite long evidence, and Dr. Sorrell had almost an entire day broken up over 2 days for his prosecution evidence and then cross-examination from Colin Mandy, SC. I think he might be. I don't know. Hey Kat, how are you guys? So yeah, that's who we saw in the witness thing today. Yeah, it was a funny day. Sometimes we get these funny days in court where it just seems like there's a lot going on, but not a ton to report, if that makes sense. There's just a lot of court thingies going on, a lot of court stuff. So we sort of have these days every now and then. He does sort of look like Will Ferrell a little bit. He could be in like Step Brothers. He could be the third stepbrother. You guys are right. So I know tomorrow I didn't hear at the end of the day whether we would hear from the senior constable again, but I suspect if they've already called one, they might continue down that path. I don't have any evidence or knowledge to back that up, but I'll just say that why would they not continue down that path if they've already called one? So we may hear a lot more from that over the next couple of days. Now that we've finished with the this part of the technical evidence, which is the cell phone data, and I hope I hope I made it somewhat easier to understand that cell phone data. Hey, Kat. Kat says, been watching catch up yesterday was a hard watch, bit technical. I know, and I think when so at the end I will request the exhibits that I've written down and kept note of, and hope that we are able to get them at some point. Then I will be able to show you what these words mean and what they correlate to. It's very hard to like I can read you what I've written down, but it doesn't make a lot of sense unless you can see it too. It does that make sense? Like I can tell you about this 300 degrees and it's over here and it's the left of the map, but I don't have the map because they don't give it out to us. So unless I sat there and recreated them all every night, which I can't even take a photo of it to do that, it would be, yeah. I think you'll get a better understanding at the end when I can actually show you and then explain what they said and show you in a lot more detail. So you'll just have to stick with me on that one. You guys are funny. So yeah, it was just one of those days. Some days we have a lot of people. Some days we have a lot of witnesses. Like I think last week we had one day where we had like 9 people throughout the day that gave their evidence to the court and the jury. Then we have some days where even over 2 days it's just one person and they've given a lot of technical evidence and stuff like that. So that's sort of what the last 24 hours have been. I know some people may not think that is very exciting or interesting, but it has to happen. That's what we do in trials. Kongwak, Korumburra, Leongatha, and surrounding towns are indigenous names. Half the names in Australia are based off indigenous names, so I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised. Kathy said, so they want to know all of her movements for that one day. No, I think what they were trying to show is that, or at least what the prosecution was trying to show, is that they were trying to show with their analysis of the data that they gave to Dr. Sorrell, they were trying to show that she had been to the same areas where death cap mushrooms had grown. Now, did they achieve that? I don't know. I'm not part of the jury. I have no idea. But I think that's what they were trying to do with the analysis. They were trying to demonstrate that she had been to these areas. That's why before Dr. Sorrell, you got the evidence from Mackenzie. So Mackenzie, last name Mackenzie, that worked for VPIC. So that's Victorian Poison Information Center. And then she gave her evidence about going to that sports oval, finding death cap mushroom, taking the photo of it, and uploading it to iNaturalist. So that's what then followed this evidence about the cell phone data. So you can see that progression of these witnesses and the evidence that they're giving for the prosecution. So Texas Roadrunner says you're up a few more subscribers. Well, that's very kind. I appreciate it. Um, it has been hard work following these trials. So if anyone wants to hang around and hear more information, I'm sorry tonight's a bit of a bummer. I'm sorry about that. I've never seen this happen before, so I don't know. I'm at a bit of a loss about what's going on. I'll find out probably tomorrow when I go to court again. So I'm not sure, and I don't want to be on the wrong side of the Supreme Court. So I want to talk to my people at the Supreme Court and find out what the hell's going on. Yeah, I can't explain what it is, but I can just say that I don't know, there's something weird. I'm not sure what's going on. So we'll find out later. We'll find out. I'll probably find out in the morning. I'll wake up and there'll be an email or something. So yeah, because normally I can run through all my notes of the day, and I can't at this point. So it just yeah. I don't want to get arrested and sent to Justice Beale's chambers or something. And YouTube didn't notify you? That's pretty sad. Yeah, please click the like button. I appreciate it. By the way, I wanted to thank a few people. I want to thank Kathy. Thank you for the donation the other day. I really appreciate it. It does help. Thank you. I wanted to thank some other people that didn't want to be named. So I'll just say thank you to those people. That's very kind of you. I hope you hear this on the replay. Mirbu? Mirbu. Yeah. Okay. All right. Hey, Chipmunk. Good to see you. So, all right. I don't think. Let me check my other notes from. Did we miss anything from yesterday? Not unless you guys want to do more technical stuff about cell phone towers, but I think we're sort of done with that topic. I don't think people want any more. They're like, that's enough. No more technical data. So, mm, yeah. I can point you to something though. If you'd like to know more about it and you'd like to learn about it on your own, like it's something you find interesting, I'm going to put a link in the chat to. So these guys are like the international. What they do is they work on cellular forensic evidence and cell site analysis, and it's the working group on digital evidence, scientific working group on digital evidence. So what they do is they release these sort of recommendations for cell site analysis. Here, I'll show you again. So they release these documents, and these are uh, sort of like best practices for cell site analysis, what we call mobile site analysis in Australia. And it's sort of like this 23-page document, and it goes through everything you would need to do to, look at cell phone data and stuff like that. gives you all the different like acronyms and historical cell site location information. See, even IP address, internet protocol. By the way, one of the things that is very interesting when I talk about this type of thing, technical stuff, not for the trial, but just in general on this channel. One of the misunderstandings people have is a lot of people think that an IP address can be used to ID a person. That's incorrect. An IP address cannot be used to ID anyone. So the way I explain it, and it doesn't fully relate to Erin Patterson, but because it came up, I thought I'd mention it again. An IP address is sort of like your telephone number in your home, right? You can change your telephone number, yeah? So you can call up the telco company and change your number. Or you could, or sort of like a mobile phone, you could buy a new mobile and get a new number. Sort of like an IP address, you can change that number. The thing that we use more for IDing of stuff is a MAC address. A MAC address is actually the physical hardware address of a device. Think of it like an IP address, but for the actual physical phone, not an IP address is a software sort of ID for your connection. What it is the the internet or network connection on your phone, that outgoing port has an IP address because all of it does, or everything in life does. Any network port or anything you connect to something else will have an IP address. There's different types: internal, external, internet, intranet. There's a whole bunch of different classifications. So you can't really use an IP address, and I know you see it a lot in court documents and that. You need other corroborating evidence to be able to do that. You can't just be like, oh my God, Jimmy D, that's his IP address. Because I can tell you in about 3 minutes, I can actually mimic that IP address and pretend I'm Jimmy D. It's not difficult. It can do it like that. And that's a type of thing called spoofing. And what that is basically you're pretending to be something else that you're not. And it can be done on a variety of different things. IP addresses, VPNs are sort of like a way of spoofing your location. So there's a bunch of different things there. So if you see this come up again in anything, you'll now know that an IP address cannot really ID someone, even though people think it can, but it cannot. You're more looking for a MAC address. A MAC address, it will at least tie you to a specific device. And that then you can get corroborating evidence like the person holding the device, or they bought it and you can find a receipt. So now you have two lots of evidence that says that, you know, Mark owns it, that type of thing. All right. Well, five 5 years in school for networking and computer systems. I hope I'm good at something. Maybe true crime, maybe one day. Kathy Lynch says, "How are experts chosen for trial?" I'm not sure. I asked this question actually today about why specifically Doctor or Professor Sorrell, and I didn't really get an answer. They were just sort of like, I don't know. They were sort of like, it's a prosecution. They sort of choose the experts that they want. So I'm guessing it probably comes from the DPP or like the prosecution. They find their own experts for things. How do you get recommended for that? I don't know. I'm guessing probably you become very good at your job. You produce a lot of papers and evidence, and I guess like anything in life, you get your name known and you'll get called up to help with certain things. That professor, he, they originally asked him and said, "You've done over 200 cases in Victoria and Australia," and he went, "Oh no, that's the old number. I've done over 400." He's done over 400 cases and giving evidence as an expert witness. 400. That that's a million cases, right? Well, it's 400 anyway, not a million. Let me see. Dame Edna? Thought Dame Edna was already dead. Thanks, Joe Neal. I appreciate you becoming a member. It's very kind, and I appreciate all the new subscribers too. It's very kind of you all. We're almost there. I think we're almost. I think we're like 75% through this trial, based on my own just watching and being there every day. I think we can see the finish line. The finish line is in front of us. How long that is between us and the finish line, I don't know. But I feel like we're sort of sprinting towards the end. We are getting there. We are getting there. You figured it out? Good work, Joe. Good work. You figured it out. You learned how to be a member. We're so proud. He's been trying to do that for like a month, maybe like 2 months. He finally figured it out. Well done, Joe. Well done. Thank you for becoming a member. Now you look, see, now you're green. Oh, it doesn't show up on there. All right. I'm sorry today was a bit of a busted coverage today. I will find out what's going on tomorrow, and I promise you, I will be. Oh, okay. Thanks, buddy. I will check it. Hold on. I promise you, we'll be back, and if I have to do 2 days in one tomorrow, I will. I've done that before when we've had things happen with throughout the trial. You're an adult. Yeah. I'm glad you are. Oh, so people were asking us, since this trial will eventually come to a close in the next week or two or three or whatever it is, what are we going to do afterwards? Well, we have a 10 episode podcast coming out after the trial finishes where I can give you my opinion and my evidence breakdown of the Erin Patterson trial, which, due to subjudice laws right now, I can't give to you. But I've been keeping a separate set of notes every day for this podcast at the end. So look forward to that. But the other question I've been getting is, will we do another trial in person for this channel? The answer is yes. The next trial that I plan to do is not Isla Bell, because Isla Bell is going to probably be at the end of this year or early next year, 2026. The next one I plan to do in person is Samantha Murphy. I am putting plans in place right now to go from this trial, and then when Samantha Murphy's trial, like she was murdered, when her killer goes on trial, I plan to attend that trial too. So that'll be the next one we go to. So if you remember her, she is a missing woman from Ballarat, and they've never found her body, but they have arrested a man for her murder. So that will be the next one I will be going to after we finish here with the Erin Patterson trial. Kat says I was going to ask you what you were going to do post trial. Yeah, so the content after the trial will be very different. It's been very sort of dry during the trial because I'm somewhat restricted with what I can do and say, especially in a live format. But as soon as we get a verdict, I can I can tell you everything I've been wanting to tell you for about 4 weeks. So there's a lot of things here that I would like to comment on and tell you things and what I saw, and so I've been keeping it all and writing notes, and you'll get all of that after we get out of the verdict. Yeah, thanks for joining. I appreciate it. So you don't know where Ballarat is? Kat says I was in Australia when Samantha Murphy went missing. So Ballarat is out west of Melbourne. So if you're in Melbourne and you just drive west for about 2 hours, 2.5 hours, you'll end up in Ballarat, which was a very big gold mining region back, what, like 100 years ago, maybe more. I'm not sure, but it's got a big history in gold mining, very much like Northern California. So if you're in San Francisco or something like that, very much like the gold rush in San Francisco back in 1849. It is sort of like that with Ballarat. Ballarat had a big gold rush as well, and there's mines all over there, and undeclared mines, and ones that no one reported, and people fall down them. And that's one of the things with the Samantha Murphy thing. A lot of people think that Samantha Murphy's body was put into a like disused mine shaft in the area. Is that true? Well, they haven't found her yet, so could be, could be. Kat says excellent. Sean says good idea. Yeah, I was thinking about this the other day because I was like, Isla Belle is going to be too far away. It's going to be about 9 months away before we see a trial for her, and I was like, well, Samantha Murphy's accused killer, his trial is coming up this year. And I was like, well, we did a lot of work on Samantha Murphy originally when she went missing. So we can do that. So that'll be the next one we go to. Lux says her poor family not knowing where she is. Yeah. I think when they found her phone, they really thought they were going to find her. I think they thought this is it. This is the big break that we've been waiting for, and it didn't happen. So, but according to the police, they have the right person in custody. So we'll have to see when we go to that trial what that brings up. All right. I'm going to get out of here. I don't want to bore everyone. I don't want to get accused of boring people. I will be back tomorrow. I'll be back on the Twitter posting a few updates throughout the day. And when I get the okay to give you more of my notes from today, I will. It's just, yeah, I will when I get the, all clear to give you more information. Chipmunk says, I hate cases like this. I'll be comparing it to a case that happened. Okay. Well, we'll see. I'm sure we'll see. All right. Hey, have a great night out there. Um, yeah, have a great night. God, what's going on? Hold on. I will be back up early tomorrow and heading back to the courthouse. Sean, I appreciate it, buddy. I think Sean's bought me like lunch every day of the trial almost. So I've been getting fat. I've been eating too much takeaway. I'll see you then. I'm sorry it's a very short show tonight. I hope it was at least somewhat interesting. No, it's not that. It's some comments come up, some don't. Yeah, have a great day tomorrow. I will be back in the courthouse from 10:30 a.m. tomorrow morning. And I I would say if we hear more evidence from the person we heard from this afternoon, um, I will tell you then. I will tell you tomorrow morning who we're going to hear from. So as soon as we get our first witness in the morning, I always send out a tweet and let people know who's in the witness box giving evidence, like to start the morning. So I will tell you that as soon as we get into court, as soon as we know. I love you all. Have a great night. I'll see you tomorrow, and we may have to have a day 14 part 2 tomorrow, unfortunately. Good night, everyone. Have a great night out there. Peace out. Yes, thank you, Joe, for becoming a new member. You have to do a dance now, okay? Dance, buddy, dance. Dance like there's no tomorrow. All right, peace out. Have a great night. I'm going to get some sleep and get back out to the courthouse in the morning. Bye. See you later. Bye. Bye bye.